Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Jonathan Borden, and welcome back to another episode of Bow Hold Basics. So far, we've learned how to hold the bow, and we've learned some exercises that help us make that bow hold feel a little bit more comfortable. So now it's time to learn how to use the bow. The bow is essentially a tool that we use to create certain sounds on the instrument, and we obviously want those sounds to be good ones. So in order to achieve that, we kind of have to learn how the bow works and how the instrument likes to be played. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you the 5 parts to using a bow that have the greatest impact on your sound quality so that when you are in the practice room, you know how to get that sound that you're after, or at the very least, you'll know how to avoid those sounds that you don't want. So let's get into it. The quickest way that you can improve your sound is by paying attention to the angle that your bow moves across the string. You always want your bow to move across the string at a 90-degree angle to the string, or a perpendicular angle like this. The reason for this is really simple. It's the way that the string wants to move. If you were to wiggle your string, you could do it pretty easily from left to right, but you can't really move it up and down. And so if you bow your string at an angle that's kind of like this, what you end up doing is not just moving it from left to right, but you're also pulling it up and down, and you get this sound that just isn't so great. As you can hear, what that adds to your sound is the sound of the bow sliding down the string like this, which is just, I don't know, it's really gross. So you always want to keep your bow at a 90-degree angle to the string for almost every situation. It can be tough to tell from your perspective if you're playing at a 90-degree angle. So a mirror really helps, or also a private teacher can really help make sure that you're playing in the right spot. Not all parts of the string are created equal. Give this a shot on your own instrument. Try wiggling the string at the halfway point of the string's length, and then try doing that again, but really close to the bridge. You'll notice that as the string gets closer to the bridge, it becomes more rigid, and that rigidity is really important to how the bow works. So here's what it sounds like. If you play kind of above the fingerboard up here where the string is less rigid, you're going to get a really soft but smooth sound. Just pleasant. If you try playing really close to the bridge, you're going to get a much louder sound, but it's also going to be a little bit harsher. So what you want to aim for, generally speaking, is a sweet spot, kind of in between those two extremes. And for most people, in most basses, that's about an inch past the fingerboard. Again, it's really helpful to check in on a mirror every once in a while to see if you're playing in the part of the string that you need to be. One thing to keep in mind is that as you start playing notes higher up on your instrument, you're going to want to also adjust the position of your bow accordingly. This is because when you play a note high like this, for example, what you've done is you've shortened the length of the string. And so the sweet spot's closer to the bridge than it was before. So general rule of thumb, the higher you go on your instrument, the closer to the bridge your bow should also be playing. Now, finding the sweet spot, to me, the best way to do it is to do it through feel and experimentation. You know, try playing above the fingerboard, try playing above close to the bridge. You want to find a part of the string where there's enough resistance where it feels good to pull into it, but like not so much where you kind of have to like fight the instrument. That's where you kind of generally want to play, but you don't always want to play in the sweet spot. There's going to be times where playing above the fingerboard is going to be good. You know, if you want to play something soft and delicate, playing above the fingerboard is going to really help you do that. For example, like this. Simultaneously, there's going to be times where you want to play something louder, and playing closer to the bridge is also going to help with that. Something like that. So use the position of the string to your advantage to get the sound that you're looking for. So this might come as a bit of a surprise, but you don't actually want to use all of your hair all the time. And there's 2 reasons for this. The first reason is that it's a little bit easier to use about 80% of your hair, because if you want to get all of the hair on the string, you have to kind of compensate either by rolling the bow forward, or what some people do is end up arching their wrists like this, which isn't so great. So 80% of hair is plenty, and that's the second reason. You just don't need all of your hair all the time. In fact, usually what you need is to use less hair. It stands to reason that the more hair you use, the more connection, grab, pull of the string that you're able to achieve. So if you use less hair, you're going to be able to get a softer sound, which is going to help you get even softer and have even more dynamic range like this. See there, I'm using like barely any of my hair, and that really helps me stay at a really low dynamic. So changing the amount of hair that I use is not something I do super often. If anything, all I'm doing is using less of it. The speed at which your bow travels across the string is one of the main ways that you can control volume. A fast bow speed means that you get a louder note, and the opposite is also true. But remember that speed is just one variable. The position of the bow on the string, for example, is another thing that can contribute to volume. And these things actually work in interesting ways. If I were to play above the fingerboard where the string is less resistant, I could play with a really fast bow speed. But because it's, in the softer part of the string, it's only going to be so loud. If I try to match that bow speed by the bridge, where there's a lot more resistance, it's not going to really work. When you play closer to the bridge, all that resistance kind of wants to slow your bow down. And if you go too fast, you're going to end up just kind of like skating over the top of the string instead of really pulling a sound. You're going to get something kind of like this. Which doesn't really work. I mean, maybe you want that sound. It's certainly a sound that gets called for sometimes in the repertoire, but usually not what we're going for. One of the most important things about the speed of your bow is its consistency, especially on long notes. If you're playing a long sustained note where the volume is pretty stable throughout, if the bow speed is kind of speeding up and slowing down over the course of the note, it's going to get this like seasick quality that is really unpleasant to listen to, something like this. You want to avoid sounding like that because the listener's kind of like, it's actually going to sound to a listener like the pitch is changing. So one of the quickest ways that you can level up your sound quality is to focus on achieving a consistent bow speed throughout the course of a note. This one's a little more complicated, so I'll try to show this in the simplest way possible. Here I am playing with absolutely no connection to the string. Now I'm playing with a little bit, but it's not very solid. You can hear that. Now I'm going to play with a little bit more connection. And now with a lot more connection. Do you see what I mean by connection? The amount of connection that you have with a string is going to determine the volume and the sound quality that's coming out of your instrument. But here's a word of warning. Don't confuse connection with pressing the bow into the string. It might seem like it makes a lot of sense, and I get it. Like, you are going to get a lot more connection with the string, but only to a point. It's kind of like driving a car and hitting the gas and the brakes at the same time. You're going to be adding a lot more energy, but you're also going to be restricting the car's ability to move. And in this case, it would be restricting the string's ability to move. What we're trying to do is get the string to vibrate freely from side to side because that's what it likes. That's the direction it wants to go. And so if you are pressing the bow into the string, what you're doing is you're kind of restricting the string's ability to move freely from side to side. So instead of pressing the bow into the string, which is going to limit your potential for a good sound, you want to think about pulling and pushing the string from side to side, which is going to get you the highest potential for a great sound. Understanding these 5 parts to using the bow is going to help you get the best sound possible. And if you're a newcomer to the instrument and you're looking for the best way to make a quick improvement, I would really focus on mastering the angle of the bow on the string and the position of the bow on the string. Getting those 2 things to be really consistent is going to level up your game really quick. But understanding all 5 of these things is not going to just help you get a bigger sound, but a broad array of sounds, because music asks us to play with a lot of different kinds of sounds. Maybe we want to play quiet or loud or soft or edgy or somewhere in between. We want like a broad palette of sounds at our disposal, and these 5 ways of using the bow are going to help us get there. So I hope you liked the video. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.